How do you explain to your daughters that their mom didn't just leave? She vanished. One minute Hannah's in our kitchen, shaking, stuffing clothes into a bag. Next minute the front door slams and she's gone. No note, no call, no goodbye. Just radio silence. I'm standing there in dad mode, trying to keep dinner on the table and fear off my kids' faces, while my stomach drops. Then, 3 weeks later, I found out why. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The truth wasn't painful. It was a gut punch that rewrote my whole life. If this hits home, tap subscribe and stay with me, because the next minute is where the silence finally breaks. I'm Nathan Crowley, 40 years old. The kind of guy who pays bills on time, shows up early, and thinks stability is love. I'm not flashy. I'm not mysterious. I'm the boring, reliable husband who keeps the car maintained and the pantry stocked. Dad mode is basically my default setting. Hannah and I have been together since we were teenagers, high school sweethearts. 23 years of inside jokes, shared routines, and that quiet confidence that comes from thinking you already survived the hard parts. We've got 3 girls, Evie's 15, Lila's 13, Brooke's 11, and our house runs on schedules. School mornings, homework, dinner, laundry, repeat. We don't scream, we don't throw things, we don't do drama. Honestly, we were the couple people point to and say, they're solid. We had a routine, and I trusted it. I didn't see it coming, not even a little. And then Monday hit. Monday afternoon, Hannah walked in like she'd been running from something you can't outrun. Her face was drained, eyes glassy, hands shaking so bad she could barely hold her keys. At first I thought panic attack, or bad news, something normal bad, something you can sit down and talk through. Evie was in the hallway and saw it before I did. Hannah yanking clothes out of drawers, stuffing them into a bag like the house was on fire. She was crying hard, the kind of crying where you're not even breathing right. Evie kept asking, "Mom, what's wrong? Talk to me." I stepped in, tried to slow it down, tried to get one sentence out of her. "Hannah, what is going on?" She didn't answer, not a word. She didn't even look at me. She just grabbed the bag, rushed past us, and headed straight for the front door. Evie reached for her arm. Hannah pulled away. The door slammed, and it felt like the whole house lost oxygen. The first 24 hours after that door slammed, I did what any husband would do. I called, I texted, I left voicemails that sounded calmer than I felt. Nothing. Just radio silence, the kind that makes your brain start inventing disasters. Car wreck, hospital, a stranger answering her phone. The girls kept circling me like satellites. Evie tried to act older than 15, but I could see her watching my face for answers I didn't have. Lila asked it straight, like ripping off a bandage. "Dad, are you getting divorced?" Brooke just kept asking when Mom would be home. So I stayed in dad mode. I made dinner. I checked homework. I read a bedtime story with my throat tight and my mind somewhere else. Then, when the house finally went quiet, the fear got louder. What if she wasn't safe? I called her parents. Hours later, one message came in, cold, clipped, almost rehearsed. "She is safe. Be patient." And that's when my stomach dropped all over again. That text didn't comfort me. It felt like a door cracked open just enough to remind you it's locked. So I called her dad, Robert, expecting a man-to-man conversation, something real. He didn't pick up. When he finally did, his voice was tight, careful. He said she was fine, then slid right back into that same line. "Be patient." Like I was a child asking too many questions. I called her mom, Linda, thinking maybe a mother would have a softer answer. Same script, same words, no details, no timeline, no, "let me talk to her and call you back." Just be patient, over and over until it stopped sounding like advice and started sounding like an order. Then I called Megan, her sister, straight to voicemail. No reply, not even a quick, "I don't know." And that's when it started feeling weird. Not messy, not confused, coordinated. I looked at Evie and saw her jaw clenched, eyes dry, pretending she wasn't scared. Everyone knew something, and I was the only one standing in the dark, trying not to look stupid in front of my own kids. The second night was worse because the house finally went quiet and my mind got loud. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, phone on my chest like it could save me. Every few minutes I'd check it, even though I already knew. Nothing. No missed calls. No, I'm okay. Just that same empty screen, like my life had been erased. That's when the pictures started. Not memories, scenes my brain made up. A car on the shoulder, a hospital hallway, a nurse asking me to identify someone. I kept telling myself I was being dramatic, but fear doesn't care about logic. Around midnight, Brooke padded into the hallway in her socks, rubbing her eyes. She climbed into my lap like she still fit there. In a voice barely louder than a whisper, she asked, "Dad, is Mom mad at us?" I smiled, the kind you wear for your kids so they don't see you bleeding. "No, sweetheart, of course not." Then I went to the kitchen to warm milk, and my hands shook so hard I spilled it. I'm trying to hold it together, but I'm cracking. By the third day, patience wasn't a virtue anymore. It was a cage. I kept replaying that text. She is safe. Be patient. Safe where? With who? And why did it feel like everyone had been briefed except me? I walked into the garage and just stood there, staring at my car like it was an exit sign. My keys were on the workbench. I picked them up, felt the metal bite my palm, and for a second I could see it clearly. Me driving straight to her parents' place, showing up unannounced, demanding the truth. Then Evie appeared in the doorway. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. She just said, "Dad, don't. It'll get ugly." Not might. Will. That stopped me, because she wasn't protecting Hannah. She was protecting the little bit of stability we had left. I set the keys down like they weighed 100 pounds. And I realized something I hated admitting. I wasn't just waiting on Hannah. I was trapped in my own house, acting normal for my kids while my insides were screaming. The silence was loud. By day 3, I was running on fumes and stubborn pride. I didn't want to show up at my in-laws' house like some desperate guy begging for scraps of information. So I did the one thing I never thought I'd do. I went online and told strangers my business. I typed it all out on Reddit. Wife gone, no explanation, her family stonewalling me, 3 kids asking questions I couldn't answer. I hit post and stared at the screen like it was going to hand me a lifeline. The replies came fast, too fast, and they all sounded the same. She's cheating. Affair. Wake up, man. I felt my face get hot reading it. Not Hannah, not us. I wanted to argue with every comment like I could bully reality into changing. But I kept refreshing anyway, over and over, like a bad habit I couldn't quit. And one line kept popping up, blunt and cold. Call for a wellness check. That's when it hit me. If they were right, my whole life was a lie. I tried to build a different story because the one Reddit handed me was too ugly to hold. Stress, I told myself. A panic episode. A breakdown. Maybe something happened at work and she couldn't breathe in her own skin anymore. Anything but cheating. Anything but me being the fool in a marriage I thought was solid. So I did what men do when feelings get too big. We start auditing facts. I went back through the calendar in my head. No big fights, no cold months, no we need to talk conversations. We had dinner at the table. We went to school events. We laughed. We planned birthdays. I kept looking for a crack in the wall that would explain why the whole house collapsed. Then I found our wedding photo in a drawer. 2 kids smiling like the world was simple. I stared at it and thought, we were kids. But we weren't stupid. Were we? And that's when I realized what I was doing. I wasn't investigating. I was clinging, because I couldn't wrap my head around her vanishing. Not like that. Not without a word. By 11 p.m., I'd run out of excuses for waiting. The house was dark, the girls finally asleep, and every creak of the floor sounded like my own thoughts pacing. I kept staring at my phone, willing it to light up, but it stayed dead. No, I'm okay. No, I need time. Nothing. Just absence. I told myself I wasn't calling the police because I was angry. I wasn't trying to punish her. I was scared. Scared she'd done something reckless. Scared she was sitting somewhere alone, spiraling, and I'd be the idiot who waited politely while something irreversible happened. So I called 911 and asked for a wellness check. Saying the words out loud made my throat tighten, like I was admitting I didn't know my own wife anymore. After that, there was nothing to do but wait. I sat on the kitchen floor back against the cabinet, listening to the refrigerator hum. Minutes stretched. Then my phone buzzed, an unfamiliar number. My heart dropped straight into my stomach as I hit answer. The officer's voice was steady, professional, like he'd said this 1,000 times. "Mr. Crowley, we located your wife. She's physically fine." For 1 second, my whole body loosened. Air came back into my lungs. I didn't even realize I'd been holding my breath until that moment. Then he kept talking. "But she's having an affair." I felt the words land like a brick to the chest. Not loud, not dramatic, just heavy, final, like something inside me shifted and never clicked back into place. I opened my mouth to respond and nothing came out. My brain was scrambling for a different sentence, any sentence, but all it could do was echo that one, affair. I stared at the staircase leading to the girls' rooms. 3 doors, 3 sleeping kids who still believed their parents were safe. I remember thinking, this is going to change them. This is going to change me. And I hated that I was learning it from a stranger on the phone. That sentence was a gut punch. And the worst part, the officer wasn't done. The officer paused, like he was deciding how much truth a man can swallow in one night. My voice didn't sound like mine when I asked, "How long?" I expected a mistake, a month, a one-time thing, something ugly but contained. He didn't give me that. "Years," he said. "We don't have an exact number, but 5, maybe more." 5. The word sat there like poison. I felt heat rush up my neck, then nausea, real, physical nausea, like my body was trying to reject the reality my mind couldn't process. 5 years means birthdays, holidays, school plays, vacations. 5 years of me trusting her when she said she was staying late or running errands. 5 years of me being proud of how steady we were. All I could think was, I got played, not just by Hannah, by the life I believed in. My jaw clenched so tight it hurt. I bit my tongue because if I let a sound out, I knew it wouldn't be words. It would be a scream. 5 years, while I was building a family. My brain kept searching for a reason that made sense, even an awful reason. I asked the officer, then why did she run like that? Why disappear on her kids? Because that part didn't fit the cheating story in my head. If you're cheating, you lie, you cover, you stay calm, you don't sprint out the door sobbing like your world just ended. The officer's next sentence is the one I still hear when the house goes quiet. Her affair partner died. I didn't understand at first. I just repeated it, slow. Died? Like if I said it differently, it would mean something else. He explained, Monday morning the man had a heart attack at work. He made it to the hospital, but he didn't make it home. He died that night. And suddenly the picture snapped into focus in the most brutal way possible. Hannah didn't vanish because she was ashamed. She didn't vanish because she was scared of me. She vanished to grieve her lover. Right there, something inside me went cold, because it meant the tears I saw weren't for us. After I hung up, I didn't move. I sat in the dark at the kitchen table and listened to the refrigerator hum like it was the only thing still working in my life. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet. Porch lights, parked cars, normal families sleeping through a normal night. Inside my chest, it was chaos. I pictured Hannah at her parents' house, not tucked into some guest room finding herself. I pictured her on their couch with a blanket around her shoulders, crying into her mom's lap. And the thought that kept slicing me was simple. Those tears weren't for our girls. They weren't for Brooke whispering in the hallway. They weren't for Evie pretending she wasn't scared. Hannah was grieving the man she'd been choosing behind my back. That's when the humiliation hit, sharp and hot, like being laughed at without hearing the joke. I looked around my own kitchen, our wedding photo on the wall, the kids' backpacks by the door, and I felt like a fool in my own home. And I still had to face Evie in the morning. I didn't even know what words could exist. By sunrise, the shock had hardened into something colder. I called her parents again. No small talk, no patience left. "Tell me the truth," I said. "Why won't anyone talk to me?" I expected at least a crack in the wall after what the police told me. Instead, I got the same careful fog. Robert's voice kept sliding away from the point, like he was trying to talk around a landmine. "Nathan, she's going through something. This is complicated. Just be understanding. Every sentence felt rehearsed. Every pause felt deliberate. I pushed harder. Did you know? Silence. Not a denial. Just silence dressed up as, we don't want to make it worse. And in that moment, I understood it. They weren't confused. They weren't protecting their daughter from me. They were protecting themselves from shame, from blame, from admitting they let this rot in the dark for years. My mind started replaying the last 6 years like security footage, weekend trips, late meetings, work friends, little gaps I never questioned because I trusted her. That trust didn't just break, it turned on me. That morning, I sat the girls down at the kitchen table like we were about to talk about a death in the family, because in a way, we were. I kept my voice steady, the way men do when they're trying not to fall apart in front of their kids. Your mom isn't coming home right now, I said. She's safe, but she needs time. Evie didn't cry. She didn't even blink much. Her face went flat, like someone flipped a switch and turned her feelings into stone. That scared me more than tears. Lila stared at the wood grain on the table, silent, picking at a loose thread on her sleeve like she could unmake this moment if she focused hard enough. Brooke looked up at me with those little kid eyes that still believe adults can fix anything. "Can I call Mom?" she asked. My mouth opened and nothing came out. Because what do you say? Sure, call the woman who chose silence over you. I just reached over and squeezed her hand. In that silence, I felt it clear as day. My kids were paying for adult sins, and there was nothing fair about it. After that, sleep stopped being something I did. It became something I chased and never caught. 2 hours here, maybe 3 if I crashed from exhaustion. The rest of the night, I'd stare at the ceiling or pace the hallway or sit on the edge of the bed with my phone in my hand like it could explain why this was happening. My emotions turned into a loop I couldn't shut off. First, this dead, heavy depression, like my body forgot how to move. Then rage, hot and fast, the kind that makes you want to punch a hole in something just to feel real again. Then numbness, which somehow felt worse, because it made me wonder if I was breaking for good. I'd scream into my pillow until my throat hurt. I'd punch my mattress until my arms cramped. Then morning would come, and I'd wipe my face, walk into the kitchen, and make breakfast like a normal dad. Eggs, toast, school lunches, small talk, smiles I didn't mean. I wasn't living. I was functioning, like a zombie wearing my own life. After a week of running on adrenaline and coffee, I did the most unromantic thing possible. I scheduled a consult with a divorce attorney. I sat in a clean office chair, listening to a stranger explain the end of my marriage like it was a process. Forms, filings, timelines. He told me there was a mandatory waiting period in our state. 90 days. Like pain needs a calendar. I nodded, asked the right questions, took notes like I was buying a car. On the outside, I looked calm. On the inside, I felt hollow. Because none of that paperwork answered the question that kept me up at 3 a.m. How did she do this and sleep at night? I called around for a therapist. The earliest appointments were weeks out. Friends meant well. Hit the gym, man. Self-care. Stay busy. Like you can deadlift your way out of betrayal. Truth is, I didn't want motivation. I wanted sleep. I wanted one quiet night where my mind didn't replay everything on loop. No one tells you the paperwork hurts less than the nights. The longer Hannah stayed gone, the more my brain turned into a detective I never asked to be. And Evie, God bless her, stepped into a role a 15-year-old shouldn't have to play. One evening, she sat next to me with her laptop and said, real simple, "Dad, we need to know." So we started digging. Not like spies, like a father and daughter trying to make sense of a house that suddenly felt booby-trapped. We checked old calendars. We looked at work trips she'd mentioned. We scrolled back through family photos, trying to match smiles with dates. Every time we found a weekend that didn't add up, my stomach tightened. Patterns started forming. Late 2019, early 2020, right around when networking and new job opportunities became her favorite phrases. Then COVID hit, and suddenly everyone was home, until things reopened and excuses got easier again. I'm running out. I'm meeting a coworker. Traffic. Each discovery didn't bring closure. It brought a new cut, and the more we found, the worse it got. A few days after Evie and I started connecting the dots, my in-laws showed up unannounced. Robert and Linda stood on my porch with that tight, polite smile people wear when they're pretending this is normal. "We just want to see the girls," Linda said, like they were dropping by for Sunday dinner. I let them in because I'm not going to punish my kids for other people's choices. The girls came out, stiff at first, then polite. 15 minutes of small talk, forced laughter, Robert asking about school like nothing had happened. Then he cleared his throat. "Nathan, can we talk privately?" We stepped into the kitchen. That's when the truth slipped out sideways. Hannah wanted to come home, he said, but she was afraid. Afraid of the backlash. Afraid to face the girls. Then came the soft push. Forgiveness. Counseling. "You've been together so long." For the kids. And I heard what they weren't saying. They didn't want her at their house anymore. They weren't asking for mercy. They were asking for convenience. Robert watched my face like he was trying to measure whether I'd explode. "Are you planning to divorce her?" he asked. Straight to it. No pretending anymore. I could have told him the truth right there. Yes, absolutely. But something in me held back. So I lied. "I'm not sure," I said. The truth was, I was sure. I was already living in the after. But if I admitted it out loud, I knew what would happen. Hannah would stay hidden behind her family, keep the story soft and vague, and I'd never get the one thing my brain kept begging for. Her truth. Not rumors, not police reports, not half sentences from her parents. I needed it from her mouth, while she looked me in the eyes. So I set a condition. "She can come home," I told them, "when she's ready to sit down with me and tell me everything. Start to finish. No holes. And after that, she sits with the girls and apologizes. Face to face, not by text, not through you. I wasn't bargaining for the marriage. I was demanding reality. After that talk with her parents, Hannah didn't call me. She didn't ask to speak like an adult. Instead, she started texting the girls every day, short, careful messages that looked good on a screen. "I'm sorry. I love you. I miss you." Sometimes a heart emoji like that could patch a hole in a family. The girls showed me everything. Evie would hold her phone out with that flat expression, like she was presenting evidence in court. Lila would glance at the messages and hand the phone back without a word. Brooke would read them twice, slow, like if she stared hard enough she could pull her mom back through the glass. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have words, because I had too many, and none of them were safe. Every time I saw "I love you," it felt borrowed, like she was spending a currency she'd already burned through. Still, I started bracing myself. In Ohio, you can't legally keep your spouse out of the house. Whether she was ready or not, Hannah could come home whenever she wanted. Those texts felt like band-aids on a bullet wound, and I could feel the moment of impact getting closer. It was almost 3 weeks to the day when Hannah walked back through our front door. I heard the lock click and my whole body tightened, like it remembered something my mind wasn't ready to face. For 17 years, my reflex was simple. Step forward, hug, kiss, ask about her day. That muscle memory didn't disappear just because she broke me. She tried it anyway. She took a step toward me with her arms half open, like we were doing a reset, like she hadn't spent weeks at her parents' house grieving a man she'd been sleeping with. I turned my shoulder and looked past her. I couldn't do it. My skin crawled at the idea of pretending. We stood there in the kitchen, close enough to touch, miles apart. I kept my voice low. "Tell me everything," I said. "Start to finish." She swallowed and stared at the floor. "I'm not ready." That sentence, and the silence after it, was suffocating. Because it wasn't just avoiding a conversation. It was her choosing comfort over truth, again, right in front of me, in my own home. Her "I'm not ready" hung in the air like a bad smell you can't get out of your clothes. I stood there staring at the woman I'd built a life with, waiting for anything. An apology, a crack in her voice, even anger. Instead, she gave me that blank stare at the floor, like the truth was somewhere down there and she didn't want to touch it. Something in me snapped, not loud, just final. "I know about the affair," I said. My voice sounded calm, which scared me. I know it's been going on for 5 years, maybe longer. Her head lifted just a fraction. Her face went pale, like all the blood evacuated at once. That's when I knew she didn't realize how much I'd learned. I didn't stop. I want a divorce. I expected tears. I expected begging. I expected the whole messy confession people swear they'd do if they were caught. Instead, she just froze. No apology, no explanation, no fight. I prepared for tears. I didn't prepare for nothing. And that nothing felt like the deepest insult of all. The silence made me talk more than I should have, like my mouth was trying to fill the space she refused to. I lowered my voice because there are questions you don't ask in anger. You ask them when you're trying to find out if your life was real. "Did you ever love me?" I said. Not as a trap, as a man asking if the last 2 decades meant anything. Was he worth it? She didn't answer. She didn't even shake her head. She stayed locked on the floor like she could hide in the grout lines. And I felt something I'd never felt in my own marriage. Erased. Like I wasn't a husband, I was a placeholder. The guy who paid bills and drove the kids and kept the machine running while her real life happened somewhere else. My throat tightened. I could feel my heart pounding in my ears. Then I heard it. Soft, careful footsteps on the stairs. A creak that shouldn't have mattered, except it did. I turned my head slightly, and the dread hit me all at once. My kids were listening. The next sound I heard wasn't Hannah's voice, it was Evie's. Fast footsteps, hard on the stairs, then she was in the kitchen like a storm breaking loose. 15 years old and shaking with rage she didn't have words for until that second. She didn't look at me. She locked on her mother. "So that's it?" Evie said, voice cracking but loud. "You just leave? You don't even say goodbye? You don't care that we cried for you? That Brooke thought you hated us?" The words came out messy and sharp, but they were real. They were everything I'd been swallowing to keep the house from exploding. Hannah finally reacted. Not with an answer, not with an apology. She backed up like Evie's truth was too close, too hot. Then she turned and walked upstairs fast, almost running, and shut our bedroom door hard enough to rattle the frame. A second later, the lock clicked. We stood there, me and my daughter listening to muffled crying behind that door. The house didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a cold war with thin walls. And the worst part was simple. My daughter said what I couldn't, because someone had to. After that blow-up, nothing went back to normal. We didn't talk it out. We didn't heal overnight. We just lived in the same house like strangers forced into the same waiting room. 2 weeks went by where every hallway felt narrow and every room felt guarded. Hannah kept to herself. She'd come out, grab coffee, disappear. I did the same. Short sentences, no eye contact, no unnecessary words. It wasn't hatred. It was survival. You can't touch a burn and pretend it's fine. Evie stopped speaking to her completely. Not dramatic, not screaming, just a clean cut. Like her mother had died and she didn't know what to do with the person walking around wearing her face. Lila stayed quiet, floating between us like she didn't want to choose sides, even though the sides had already been chosen for her. Brooke was the only one who still tried. She'd knock on Hannah's door at night and whisper, "Mom?" Sometimes she'd come back with wet eyes and say, "She didn't answer." I kept telling myself one thing, be civil for the kids, but living together wasn't living together. It was just coexisting. After the first blow-up, Hannah found a new routine. Every Friday night, she packed a small bag and drove an hour to her sister Megan's place. She'd come back Sunday night, quiet, eyes puffy, moving like she was trying not to take up space. At first I didn't question it, because what was there to question? Our whole life was already upside down. But after the second Friday, then the third, the pattern started to itch. Why every Friday? Why like clockwork? It wasn't about needing space. It felt like a script, like she needed somewhere to go where she wasn't forced to see what she did. I tried to stay cold, not cruel, just controlled. I kept my voice flat, my face neutral, my answers short. I told myself it was discipline. The truth is, I was scared. Scared that if I let myself feel too much in front of her, I'd break in a way I couldn't put back together. And then Hannah changed again. She started being overly nice, offering to cook, asking if I'd eaten, apologizing in little soft bursts like confetti, like kindness could erase time. She was trying to rewrite the room while I was still bleeding. Last Friday, she didn't leave before I got home. She was waiting in the kitchen when I walked in, standing there like she'd been practicing the moment. The girls weren't home yet, and the quiet in the house felt staged, like the universe was making room for something ugly. I tried to walk past her. She reached out and grabbed my hand. Not gentle, just enough to stop me. "Is this how you're going to treat me?" she said. "Just because I'm not ready to talk about the affair?" That was the first time she'd said the word out loud since she came back. And something in me snapped open. All the nights of no sleep, all the mornings pretending, all the humiliating images in my head, everything I'd been holding behind my ribs came pouring out. I told her about the insomnia, about screaming into a pillow so my daughters wouldn't hear, about punching the mattress until my arms cramped, about walking through my own house feeling like a stranger in my marriage. I didn't yell to scare her. I yelled because I couldn't carry it anymore. And for the first time, Hannah actually broke. She started crying, real crying, messy, shaking, saying, "I'm sorry," over and over. Seeing her hurt felt good, and I hated myself for that. The second Hannah started crying like that, I felt something ugly in myself, relief. Like finally she was feeling a fraction of what I'd been carrying, and that scared me. So I did the only thing I knew how to do when I was about to say something I couldn't take back. I left. I grabbed my keys and walked out before my anger turned into cruelty. I drove with no destination, just dark roads and the dashboard glow, trying to cool down. When I came back, the girls were home. They didn't ask directly, but they knew. Evie's eyes scanned my face like she was checking for damage. Brooke got quiet in that way kids do when they sense adult pain leaking through the walls. I hated that. I hated that my marriage was teaching them what heartbreak sounds like. And then, later that night, a different fear showed up. Not, "I miss her." Not, "I want her back." Just a cold thought. What if Hannah does something stupid? She'd lost her lover. She'd lost her family. Everyone had turned their backs. I didn't want her back. I just didn't want her dead. That week, therapy started, at least the first appointments we could get. The girls went, I went, Hannah went. Sitting in those waiting rooms felt like standing in line after a disaster, hoping someone could hand you a version of your life that still made sense. At home, Hannah clung to apologies like they were oxygen. "I'm sorry," in the kitchen. "I'm sorry," in the hallway. "I'm sorry," through a cracked door. She'd knock softly at night and ask if we could talk. Every time she tried, it felt less like comfort and more like pressure, like she wanted forgiveness because she couldn't stand herself. One night I snapped, not proud of it, just honest. "Leave me alone," I said. "Stop." She went quiet, then asked for something different, private. "Can we talk? Just us?" No kids, no walls listening, no living room where my daughters might hear their mother confess to breaking them. I said yes, but not in the house. We sat in my car in the garage, like strangers hiding from our own kids. We sat in my car with the engine off, the garage door closed, and that heavy quiet pressing in from every side. Hannah reached into her bag and pulled out a stack of papers, 5 pages, handwritten. Not a letter, not a plea, a timeline, dates, places, notes in the margins like she'd been studying for an exam she deserved to fail. "I wrote it all down," she said, voice thin, "so I wouldn't back out." She started at the beginning. Megan introduced her to Daniel Ross for networking, late 2019. A guy with influence, good connections, the kind of coworker people call helpful. Then it moved the way these things move. Texts that felt harmless, then flirting, then pictures. Lines crossed one at a time so nobody has to admit they jumped. Right before COVID, it turned physical. She said that word like it burned. Then she said the one that burned worse, "I fell in love." In that moment, I understood something brutal. Hannah didn't just cheat. She built a second life, brick by brick, while I was at home thinking we were safe. Once she started, it didn't come out as one big confession. It came out as a list. Every little lie stacked on top of the next like receipts you can't return. Weekend girls' trips that weren't for the girls. Work travel that wasn't work. Traffic that lasted hours. Errands that didn't match any store. Even fights with her parents that were never real. Just cover stories so I wouldn't ask questions. And the worst part was how easy it was to remember each one, because I believed her, every time. I'd shrug and say, "Drive safe." I'd keep dinner warm. I'd kiss her forehead when she got home and tell her I missed her. I felt sick realizing how many times I'd made it easier for her to betray me, just by being trusting. Halfway through, I couldn't hold it. I started crying, quiet at first, then the kind of crying that surprises you because you didn't know you still had that much left. Hannah reached for my hand and said, "I'll do anything to save us. Anything, except tell the truth when it mattered." Hannah kept talking, kept apologizing, kept trying to stitch words into something that looked like remorse. But my mind was stuck on one thing: if she'd truly let go, or if she was only here because Daniel Ross was gone. So I asked the only question that mattered, the one that cuts through every speech and every tear. "If he was alive," I said, "and you had to choose right now, who would you choose?" She didn't answer right away. It wasn't a long hesitation, just a beat. A small pause most people wouldn't even notice. But I noticed. Because in a marriage, a pause is a confession. Her eyes flicked down, then back up like she was calculating what the right answer should be. "That's not fair," she whispered. I didn't move. "Answer it." She swallowed. "You. Of course. I'd choose you." And I felt something settle in me like a door locking. "Your hesitation is my answer," I said, flat and quiet. That pause killed this marriage more than the affair ever did. Then I said it out loud, clean and final. "We're getting divorced." The moment I said divorce, Hannah folded. Not gracefully, just collapsed into sobs, hands covering her face like she couldn't stand to be seen anymore. I didn't feel victory. I felt tired. The kind of tired that sits behind your eyes and makes everything look gray. I let her cry because I didn't have the energy to manage her feelings anymore. When her breathing slowed, I spoke the way a man speaks when love is gone but responsibility is still standing. "Be fair," I said. "Be civil. Do right by the girls. Whatever you did to me, don't do it to them again." I told her I wasn't going to smear her to the kids. I wasn't going to make this uglier than it already was. But I wasn't going to pretend either. We would co-parent. We would keep the house from becoming a battlefield. That was the bare minimum. Then I did something I still can't fully explain. I leaned over and kissed her on the forehead, soft, quick, like closing a book you once loved. "I would have loved you forever," I said. That kiss wasn't love, it was a funeral. A few days after that night in the garage, the divorce paperwork moved forward like a machine. Deadlines, signatures, dates, and Hannah didn't fight it. She didn't hire a lawyer. She didn't contest anything. No angry emails. No "I want half of everything" speeches. She just let it happen. At first, I felt relief, like finally, something was simple. Then the relief turned into this dull ache, because it meant she gave up way too easily. 17 years married, 23 years together, 3 kids, and she didn't even try to hold on. Not to me, not to the life we built. That stung in a way I wasn't expecting. Meanwhile, the world didn't stop for heartbreak. Evie still had school. Lila still had assignments. Brooke still needed breakfast and clean clothes. So every morning I got up, packed lunches, signed permission slips, and pretended my hands weren't shaking. I learned quickly. You can fall apart privately, but you can't abandon your kids. The marriage ended, but the parenting didn't. And responsibility was the rope that kept pulling me back to my feet. Once the noise settled, the real damage showed up in the quiet. I started understanding something I never had words for before. Betrayal doesn't just hurt, it changes what real even means. It messes with your head in a way that feels personal, like your own memories turn against you. I'd walk past a family photo on the wall and my brain would do it automatically. When that was taken, who was she thinking about? I'd remember a laugh at the dinner table and wonder if it was genuine or just good acting. I hated that question, but I couldn't shut it off. I couldn't unsee it. At night, I learned how to breathe through the worst moments, slow, quiet breaths so the girls wouldn't hear me unravel. I stopped drinking caffeine after noon. I forced myself outside for 10 minutes, even when I didn't want sunlight. Small things, survival things. And I made a promise to myself. I wasn't going to let this turn me bitter. Pain is inevitable. Poison is a choice. Because betrayal doesn't just break hearts, it rewrites memories. Over the next few weeks, I started seeing small changes. Quiet ones. The kind you only notice if you live inside the pain. Evie didn't forgive her mom. Not even close. But she stopped walking around like her heart was made of concrete. She'd laugh at something on her phone again. She'd talk to me in the car about school drama like the world still existed. It wasn't healing Hannah. It was Evie choosing life. Lila surprised me the most. In therapy, she finally started talking. Not a lot, but enough. She said she felt invisible, like everyone was so busy being broken that nobody noticed her breaking quietly. That hit me harder than any angry speech. Brooke still missed her mom, but she learned boundaries in a way no 11-year-old should have to. She stopped begging at Hannah's door. She started asking me first, "Is it a good day to call her?" And I reset my goal. Not revenge, not winning, just stability, peace, a home where my girls could breathe. Somewhere in that, I realized I had to forgive myself first, for trusting, for missing signs, for thinking love meant never question. My kids weren't my weakness. They were my life raft. Some nights, when the house finally settled, my mind would drift back to the people who weren't even in my living room anymore, but still had fingerprints all over it. Daniel Ross was dead, but the shockwaves weren't. It's a strange kind of anger, being haunted by someone you can't confront. No apology to demand, no face to look in the eye, just a ghost that took years from my life and left the bill on my kitchen table. Then there was Megan, Hannah's sister, the one who opened the door and called it networking. Maybe she didn't mean for it to turn into this. Maybe she did. Either way, she lit the match and walked away from the fire. And my in-laws, the silence. That careful, coordinated silence that made me feel like the fool who didn't deserve the truth. That might have hurt almost as much as the affair itself. Here's what I learned. Trust without boundaries isn't love, it's blindness. Love still needs a line in the sand. But I'm still here. And I didn't lose my life. I lost the lie I was living in. So here's the straight version. No extra noise. Hannah vanished. No note, no call, no goodbye. I waited, I begged for answers, and the only thing I got was silence dressed up as "be patient." I called for a wellness check because I was scared she'd hurt herself. Instead, I found out she'd been having an affair for years. Then the twist that still makes my stomach drop. Her affair partner died, and she ran to grieve him while our daughters sat at home asking me where their mom went. And her family knew. They knew and let me stand there looking stupid. She came back. She stonewalled. Then she confessed. 5 pages, a whole second life. I asked one question and her hesitation answered it. That's why we're divorcing. If you take anything from this, take this. Protect the truth, protect your kids, protect your dignity. Some betrayals don't end marriages. They end illusions. If this hit home, drop a quiet "I'm here" in the comments and subscribe. I'll keep telling the rest like it is.